What does a lifetime commitment mean to you?
Just that. If you make that commitment, and in Delta, it's more than a commitment, it's a vow. For me, it means I'm all in until I take my last breath. I'm Thomasina Rochelle Stenhouse. I was initiated at Howard University, the Mother Pearl Alpha Chapter in 1970. My inspiration for joining Delta really comes from my family. My dear Aunt Dorothy, my mother's sister, was a Delta, true and true. she bled red and white. And growing up, that's all I heard about. Every time she would visit, she lived in New York City, and she would visit, and it was always all about Delta. And then several years later, when my brother got married, his wife was a Delta, so my sister-in-law was a Delta. So that's all I heard at home, even though the AKAs were more prominent in the Buffalo community at the time. And so I went to Howard predisposed to seek out the Deltas. And also at the time, in the late 60s, there was a lot of colorism issues, a lot, on Howard's campus, which was very sad to me. And I saw a lot more diversity of color in the Deltas than I saw in the AKAs. And so the family predisposition and what I saw on campus kind of led me to go to seek membership in Delta. I remember waking up in my dorm after I crossed over, having had a dream about my aunt who had passed on. She passed on before I went to Howard. I was 15 when she passed. But at that moment that I passed, and afterwards, I dreamt that I had a conversation with her, and she was just telling me how proud she was of me. So it was a glorious feeling. Once I took that commitment, I took the vow. I'm a Delta now. To me, it was a gift, because it wasn't a given. They had to accept me. I had to go through the process of becoming a Delta. Once I did all of that, I'm all in. And so it becomes a part of my identity, or it became a part of my identity. And so I've traveled, I've lived in different places. I've had the challenges of going to a new place and not knowing anyone. But because I'm a Delta, I know I have a responsibility to connect. And there are really only 2 times in my Delta journey when I was disconnected. I'm still a Delta, but I wasn't actively engaged. And when I say I'm all in, I'm all in. It's not just I go to meetings and I pay my dues. It means I'm actively doing something. Chairing a committee, or actively working on a committee, or holding an office. I'm all in. There have only been 2 times when I wasn't all in. Still a Delta, but I knew it was a hiccup. There was never a question that I wouldn't come back and reconnect and be all in. But there were 2 occasions in my Delta journey where I was a bit disconnected. I moved from Los Angeles back home. And immediately, I knew people. They had interviewed me for a college scholarship when I was coming out of high school. So I knew, I didn't know them personally, but I knew of them. So I knew of Ophelia Nicholas. I knew of Gwen Green. Those were probably the 2. Irma Robinson. They were, and my mother, while she's not a Delta, she knew like all the Deltas. And my sister-in-law, when she lived in Buffalo, had been a member of Buffalo Alumni. So I had an entree. And I remember going to the first meeting, was on Fillmore Avenue, and not knowing anyone. And sorry, Yvonne Hargrave was the president. And I remember sitting there. But the thing is, I made a vow. I made a commitment to Delta. There was never a question as to whether or not I was going to be active again. And shortly thereafter, being tapped to chair the Jabberwock, and they hadn't had a Jabberwock in 20 years at the time. And I had attended the last Jabberwock at the age of 13. And that was the last one they had. And so the president at the time wanted me to chair, and I said, okay, well, I'm new. I want to do it. I can do this. but I knew I needed someone who knew the city better and the sorors better. And so I said, I will do it if Soror Rowena Adams-Jones will be my vice chair. I don't believe in co-chairs. So that's another story. But and so Rowena agreed, and we chaired the first Jabberwock that Buffalo Alumni had in 20 years. And at the time, it was the biggest fundraiser that they had ever had in the history of the chapter. So I was very proud of that. I still am very proud of that. When I think about Buffalo Alumni, first of all, a smile comes to my face. It's heartwarming because I've been in other large chapters. I was in a large chapter in the DC area. I was in a very large chapter in San Francisco. When I come back to Buffalo, a small or somewhere between small and a medium-sized chapter, and I look at what we have done in this community, there's nothing better. Here we have impact. We do things on a grand scale. We've done things in Buffalo that our grand chapter has said, we want you to do it in the Eastern region. We want you to fly. We're going to bring you to San Francisco to do it for the National Convention. That's how good we are here in Buffalo. That's the quality of the programs that have come out of this small to medium-sized chapter. There's none better. Through my Delta experiences, I've learned that I must be a leader because people are willing to follow me. I always get kind of tickled and surprised when I hear how other people perceive me, and it's a blessing. But yeah, I've learned that I'm a leader. I've learned that I can put together a working committee that can do great things on a grand scale. I've learned that, my voice matters when people seek me out for counsel, which always surprises me. But I've learned that I have something to offer. Soror's approaching that 50-year milestone. I would say stay involved. Give space to the younger sorors, but don't pull out. Because as our current president keeps telling me, we need your wisdom. And I don't think of myself as having a whole lot of wisdom. But the fact that she thinks I have it means that I must be offering something. So offer it. If I've got something to give, then I want to give it. It blesses me that she sees me as someone who's wise. So I would say stay involved, stay plugged in. Don't totally sit down. Just step back. Don't sit down.